We talked about, my first disappointment. If you didn't listen to that video, I would urge you to do so, because it will begin to put things in perspective about, what I struggle with every single day. I want to talk about bullying, because bullying was a huge part of my life, because I was bullied at school and I was bullied at home, and it diminished my self-confidence. It made me develop self-hatred towards myself, and I never really felt comfortable in my own skin, because I've always been dealing with these demons of, remembering what people say about me and what they've done to me. So, when I was in school, people talked about me, talked about my clothes. Back then I wasn't really wearing this stuff, but people were wearing things like Guess and Tommy Hilfiger and DKNY and Jordans. People still were wearing Jordans back then, and New Balances. I wasn't wearing any of that stuff, and I'm not saying that it's my mom's fault, because I understand, you being a single mother, it's kind of hard for you to buy clothes, let alone buy name brand stuff. So I understood that. That didn't make it any easier though, because when I went to school, people talked about me so bad that I didn't want to go to school. I really didn't want to go to school. I remember a day where I just had enough. It was one of those days where I was at lunchtime, and so when you're at lunchtime, and then they'd say, lunchtime is over, you and everybody else got to get up, and y'all got to walk up the steps. So it's like 100, 200, 300 kids walking up the steps so they can get back to class. And one time when I was walking up the steps, I remember one of the girls that used to bully me, they pulled my book bag down so I could fall down the steps. There was another situation where, they just used to talk about me, say mean things about me, talk about my looks, talk about my hair. My hair was a big thing, because my mom used to perm my hair. My hair is already thin in texture. It's very, very thin, and so my mom used to perm it, and when she permed it, it was like stringy. So, now I didn't have full hair like a lot of the other girls in school, and I didn't get my hair done either back then. My sister used to do my hair, and so during those times, my hair wasn't always the best, and people used to talk about me so bad and say I'm bald headed, and I used to they used to whisper it, but it was like I could hear it. And for me hearing it all those times every single day, it just it did something to my psyche. It did something to my brain, to the point where I just hated everything about myself. And then when I went home, I was being bullied by my older sister. And so what my older sister would do is she would be like the bullier, and then she would get people, or my sisters or other people, to join in with her to talk about the one so it would be her and two other people, but they would gang up on this other person. So if you wasn't being bullied, you were the bullier. You were joining in with her. It was kind of like we had to do her bidding. And so I always wanted to be on the side of bullying others, because I didn't want to be the person being bullied. But there were times when I was a part of the bullying, and she would talk about my hair and, talk about my looks and things like that. And this is really hard to hear something like that coming from a family member or somebody that you think is supposed to love you, and you don't feel loved. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel love from my mother. I didn't feel love from my father. I didn't feel love from my sisters, for the most part, because they would tease me, and I would do the same thing. Because I just didn't want to be the only person that didn't get bullied in that house was my older sister, because she was always the one that was bullying others. She was the one that made us do things that we didn't want to do, and then when we didn't do those things, she would either beat us, hit us, talk about us. My mom, she worked a lot, so my sister was the one who practically raised us, and she would cook for us and things like that. And she had this plastic belt, and it was like this little cheap belt you would get from like Rainbow or something like that, but it was plastic. It had glitter on the inside. I'll never forget it. And it had like the holes where the belt buckle piece would go into. It was metal, and she would wrap that belt around her arm or around her hand, and she would beat us with it if we didn't do what she wanted us to do, or if we didn't if we didn't do what she wanted us to do. I remember a time where she and my younger sister tried to smother me in my sleep. I woke up one night in the middle of the night to just feeling all this pressure. I couldn't breathe, and there was all this pressure on my face. I heard giggling, and I just didn't think it was funny. I didn't think it was funny, but I almost died. And I remember when I was able to, I couldn't get them off of me, but when I was able to get them off of me, I went to my mom's room to tell her what happened. And when I told her, she got mad at me because she said I should have been asleep. I was asleep. They tried to smother me in my sleep, and that's what made me wake up. But she got pissed at me because I was waking her up out of her sleep, and then go back to bed. So I went to bed. I would go